in time, this is from the archaeological texts. This is the paradigm from the Rosh Hashanah and the Ugaritic texts. He is described as the patriarch of the heavenly family. He's described with a long flowing beard, and he's presiding over this family setting that is actually turns out to be the council of the gods. They start discussing the creation and all that. But the texts say he is the head god of the gods, and yet they also say he also had a father. They just don't talk about him. For their purposes, they say this is the high god, El.
But not necessarily the first one.
Not necessarily the first one, no.
Okay.
But for their purposes, that's the one who had all the sovereignty, all the power. He was able to give all of his 70 sons the various nations of the earth to be under control of. And that is discussed in Deuteronomy chapter 32. Yeah?
Sorry, can you tell me where to find this? I'm a history major. I'm like a big time nerd. So can you tell me where to find all this?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell you afterward.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I've got about $6,000 worth of materials I could lead you to. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's a huge topic right now. It really is. There have been books and books and books. William G. Dever, one of the biblical archaeologists, just 2 years ago, produced a book, and the title of this book is, Does God Have a Wife? And he answered in the affirmative. And he is a world-class Bible scholar. I mean, that's a topic that 10 years ago, they would have hung you up to dry if you would have talked about it. And now they're publishing it. And it's fascinating because the archaeology of the discoveries are showing that the actual original heavenly setting was as an eternal family. And they're saying what happens on heaven, the reason we're organized here on earth right now, the way we are, we emphasize families, that's the correct. Joseph Smith claimed this is a restoration. In his day, nobody. I mean nobody. I have challenged the critics to show me where, if they think I'm kidding, nobody taught that doctrine of a heavenly family. Really. They killed the prophet for teaching that. Now they're teaching it. It's a fascinating turnaround. With the ex nihilo, are you familiar with the King Follett Discourse? Have you heard of the King Follett? Yeah.
Yeah, I've read it a few times. I have a copy myself.
The King Follett Discourse?
Yeah.
And you have read it?
Several times.
Good. It's good stuff. It was one of Joseph Smith's last sermons. And it was in the King Follett Discourse where he taught that it's not in the Bible, but Joseph Smith taught that it was in the Bible at one time, but he received it through revelation, that God was once a man, and he is a man, and we are his children. To break it down in a real quick nutshell, the 6 items that Joseph Smith taught in the King Follett Discourse were that the creation occurred by organizing the world, not from nothing, but by pre-existing matter. There was a grand council consisting of a plurality of gods in the beginning of the creation of this earth. There was a head god who presided over the council of the gods. The council of the gods, under the direction of the head god, appointed one God to preside over us in the work of creation and redemption. Among these gods in the pre-earth council were intelligences who existed eternally without creation before they became mortal. So we know, we teach, we understand that our spirits are our immortal part. And humans have the potential to be gods because they are the same kind as God. We say we're children of God. We Mormons take it in the teeth for saying, but we really are. That's not an allegory. That's not a metaphor. We believe we have heavenly parents. We are not different than the gods, other than we're in our mortal probation right now. So, Joseph Smith teaching that, the world scholars have been analyzing these texts, and they've come up with saying Well, let me back up. This is out of Blake Ostler's book of God and Gods. This is one of the books. This is about the Council of the Gods. You'll love this book. It's deep, but it's good. Very good. The first concept that Joseph Smith taught, rejecting creation ex nihilo, he taught it consistently for 6 solid years at the end of his life. He never backed off that. He said that is a false doctrine. We now know that creation ex nihilo, in a rough sort of general way, really picked up steam 200 AD. That's 2 centuries after Jesus lived. Jesus never taught that doctrine. It was never understood in the Hebrew Bible. It was never understood in the Greek Bible. It was a later doctrine, and the reason why it came about, as Hugh Nibley noted, is he said they rejected the pre-existence. After Jesus and the apostles were gone, the church rejected the doctrine of pre-existence, and therefore they came up with creation ex nihilo. The Christians believe we are creatures. There is a creator, and this creator is completely separate from us. There's the creator. He has created the creation. We are part of this creation. There is an unbridgeable gulf between us as what type of beings we are and God and what type of being He is. God is eternal. He's immortal. He'll live forever. He has all power. We are mortal, weak, and we die. That's the Christian doctrine in a nutshell. Our doctrine makes hash of that because we say there is a gulf at this point because we are mortal. How is that gulf overcome?
Through Jesus.
Perfect. Jesus came and wiped out the gulf between us and God. Duh. And you say duh, but the Christians don't teach that. They teach Jesus came to save us so that we'll all return to heaven and be happy. We're saved by grace, but we'll never be like God. That's a false doctrine. Joseph Smith taught we're already gods and goddesses. We're just having a mortal experience. Through the atonement of Christ, He takes away the gulf between us and God, and we can return to the Father through the atonement. If that isn't what the atonement does, then it is of no value at all. I've asked Christians before, I've asked them on the internet, what's the point of living forever if you can't be like God? Why would He create something inferior and keep it that way? The Christian world teaches Jesus is both God and man. Fully. And we would say, yes, but so are we. We're just in a mortal experience at this point. The veil is drawn over us. We aren't back into eternity yet. The way back to the Father, because Adam fell, is through the atonement of Christ. When we accept that atonement, then we get to return. That's our whole point of emphasizing Jesus Christ. Right? No? Yes? Okay, you're all nodding yes. How to polite. That's good. I like it. So, the idea that Joseph Smith taught is he said the Hebrew, Joseph Smith started the school of the prophets with a lot of the early brethren. Pardon P. Pratt, Orson Pratt, Heber C. Kimball, Brigham Young, Willard Richards, all of the early brethren.